were shooting this movie at real Grand Prix on race weekend, on the track in front of a live crowd, shooting scenes, during the race, often only having a few minutes to pull them off. And the goal was to kind of capture something you couldn't do any other way. And even though it was extremely challenging, I think when you watch this film, it feels real because it is. We were there, and there's just no replacement for that.
Joe, I had the pleasure of screening this film at the Academy Museum, and I can tell you that the sound in that theater was, it was delicious. Is the best
Great.
word that I
I'm
can
so happy
say.
to hear that. Yes, I got to peek in on that screening, and it is a wonderful theater and really, I think, represents what we were aiming for. So great to hear that.
So I would love to talk a little bit more about, getting Lewis to agree to come and work with you on this film, because I have an understanding of like F1 and racing. And I know how difficult that sort of like bridging sort of that gap and making sure that that organization can trust that you're going to film in their locations and not mess anything up.
It all started with Lewis, basically me reaching out to him and saying, I want to create the most authentic racing film that's ever been made. Will you help me? Luckily, Lewis said yes. Then we brought in Jerry Bruckheimer, the legendary producer. We got Brad Pitt to agree to play Sonny Hayes. And then we went to the Formula One organization, Stefano Domenicali, who runs it, and kind of presented our case and the team that we had assembled to pull this off. And luckily, Stefano trusted us and asked the world of Formula One to help us in putting this film together. And we couldn't have done it, obviously, without them. We were shooting this movie at real Grand Prix on race weekend, on the track in front of a live crowd, shooting scenes, during the race, often only having a few minutes to pull them off. And the goal was to kind of capture something you couldn't do any other way. And even though it was extremely challenging, I think when you watch this film, it feels real because it is. We were there, and there's just no replacement for that.
That is what I was so fascinated hearing the Q&A, because I'm always wondering as a journalist, how does this movie magic get made? And then hearing that, I'm like, wow, that just puts a completely different layer on top of the story that we're watching. I know F1 has been described as a story of redemption, mentorship, and kind of like underdog grit. And
Yeah.
I know you incorporated real stories of real people, especially that monologue that Sonny has. It was inspired by Lewis Hamilton. And I was kind of wondering if there were other pieces of the film that were inspired by other people.
Sonny Hayes in our story had this horrific crash in the 1990s. And that crash that you see in the film was actually real footage of a crash by a driver named Martin Donnelly, who had a crash in the 90s at that Spanish track. And Lewis was the one who came to me and said, that's the crash that kind of sends a chill down every Formula One driver's spine. And if I know Martin, I'll reach out to him and see if he will allow us to use his crash as the inspiration for Sonny's crash. And we reached out to Martin. He agreed to it, and in fact came to set the day we shot that scene with Sonny in the 1990s. And to have him there and hear his version of it and then allow us to use it in the film was pretty incredible. He's an amazing story. And if you don't know that story, you should look up Martin Donnelly and watch a documentary about him, because it is pretty amazing.
Brad did his own driving. Your actors did their own driving. At what point do you say, they've got enough experience under their belt and we can let them go?
The Las Vegas race was the one where they were really out there on their own. They didn't get to rehearse on that track. They didn't get to practice on it. It's a track that only exists 3 nights out of the year. It's one of the most dangerous tracks we drove. And we only had 15 minutes to shoot that scene. And both Brad and Damson went out there and relied on their incredible training and pulled off a very important scene in a very short amount of time. So that's one of the scenes I'm most proud of them for being able to do.